Good morning, YouTube. Good to be with you all again. Yes, indeed. Of course, today is brought to us courtesy of Stanbic IBTC. So fantastic, as always, for a Thursday. So, Afolabi, any stocks to make us rich?
Yeah, any stocks to make us rich?
Morning, Rotus. Morning. How you doing?
Good to be with you, man.
You too. You too.
It can be. Good morning. Welcome to Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's time for Business Express. And of course, Rotus is here with us today. Of course, Business Express is brought to you by Stanbic IBTC. And today we have a very special guest joining us in the studio. But first things first, though. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Kayode. Good morning to all our listeners. Good morning to our special guests from Stanbic IBTC as well.
That's right. We have Afolabi Benro, equity sales trader at Stanbic IBTC. He is here with us this morning. Good morning, Afolabi.
Good morning, Kayode. Good morning, Rotus. Thank you for having me.
All right. You can be a part of our conversation by joining the live stream. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. And also, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp platform, 0809-444-0981. Today, we're talking about stock market review. Of course, it's with Stanbic IBTC. So, Rotus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Kayode. So Afolabi, how would you, describe stock market activity for the past week, past month of March?
Cool. Thank you, Rotus. So the market has generally been quiet outside of a few block transactions. These are transactions that are basically structured between clients off market, and then they come to the market to then execute. The banking names have been the most active of recent, with decent sized blocks. We saw some huge block trades in the likes of FCMB a bit earlier in the month. GTCO, Zenith, and Access have also been quite busy. We've seen a mix of foreign and local participation there, but we've seen decent volumes trading in those names. Also to flag, this is corporate action season where dividends and bonuses are being declared. So we've seen a number of investors sort of taking positions ahead of these to take advantage of the dividends and bonuses that are declared. And typically, this is usually a very busy part of the year for investors because of the dividends and bonuses. But I mean, just to flag, we haven't really seen any sort of like sharp moves up or down in the market. Generally, it's been driven mostly by just sort of like quiet trading. We're still seeing foreign investors being net sellers in some names, and said they're actually net buyers in some names. So that's been the trend pretty much of recent in the markets.
All right. And again, for any folks that have any questions, want to get Stanbic IBTC as their broker and so on, send an email. Call me at stanbicibtc.com if you have any inquiries that send to Afolabi and others. Has there been any questions from clients on the war in Ukraine? Has that affected any trades or led to any nervousness on the part of clients? I mean, that's somewhere else. Will that impact any trading here?
Yeah, so typically we've seen questions from clients, and the questions have basically been, what's going to be the effects of this war on the Nigerian exchange and on the stock market and investing? I mean, one thing I wanted to just flag is that there used to be sort of like a correlation between the way crude oil prices would move and the way foreign investors would invest in our market. Obviously, the price of crude has been soaring, but we've not seen sort of the effect in our market because foreign investors are not, the ownership of foreign investors has actually dwindled in our market. So we're not seeing that effect the way it used to be. If you remember a couple of years ago when COVID started and the price of oil dipped, the market dipped significantly because of foreign investors. But because we're no longer at that phase, we're not seeing the effect of the war directly in that way on the markets right now.
As far as, I guess, sentiment of clients, if we were to take it back and say, okay, from the beginning of this year, how would you describe sentiment from your clients and so on?
Yeah, so it's been very bearish. I mean, slightly bearish. We haven't really seen any because there's not been any sort of strong catalysts in the market. So a lot of guys have sort of priced in a flat performance this year from the market. We don't really see any sort of significant moves, especially if nothing changes from the current sort of macro and economic stance. So all this has sort of been priced in. So we're not really expecting so much of a bullish year so far this year from clients.
Okay, speaking of triggers, day before yesterday, in fact, yesterday we went through, day before yesterday was the commissioning of the Dangote fertilizer plant. Yesterday, we went through a full rundown of all the things that happened. Did that spark any interest in any Dangote entities on the exchange at all?
Unfortunately not. We didn't see any from our end. And if you look at the volumes that traded in Dangote names, Dangote Cement, Dangote Sugar, NASCON, we didn't really see any volumes on the back of this. So I guess the conversations are still ongoing. If there's going to be any sort of interest or activities from that, we're yet to see that.
Okay, you may have already answered this earlier when you gave a rundown, but has there been any particular, I think you mentioned banking, any particular sectors that clients have been focused on since the year began?
Yeah, so the banking sector has always been a particular sector of interest for clients, especially foreign clients. But I mean, we've also seen interest, increased interest rather in the telco names, especially MTN. Particularly after the public offer that just concluded. We've also seen interest in oil and gas names, particularly Seplat Energy. That's what we've been seeing sort of volumes trade, and also the likes of Nigerian Breeze. Those are the names that sort of we've been seeing that have been driving volumes in the market so far this year.
All right.
Go ahead, Kayode.
Yeah, we have a few messages here. We will have one from Otunuga Sunday. He says, Rotus and Afolabi, please, what is behind the free fall of the price of the shares of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC on the NASD platform, and also from an all-time high over 300 to 170 now. Now at a time oil prices are rising. He's asking basically what's the price behind, what's the issue behind the free fall of prices?
I'm gonna come clean and say I do not really follow the NASD. That's the alternative market. Afolabi, are you involved in the NASD?
Yes, we are involved in the NASD, but I would need to check on the reason behind the fall in the price. But we do actually follow the NASD.
Well, it's interesting that question comes up because Seplat has accurately tracked, if we look at the exchange, the NGX, Seplat has accurately tracked oil prices. As oil prices have gone up, Seplat has appreciated. However, on the other hand, on the NASD, we're seeing shares of that entity fall. And I guess the NASD, it's easier to list there. The requirements are less and so on and so forth compared to the NGX, right?
Yeah, they have slightly different listing requirements for the NASD.
Yeah, so I would assume that oil. Look, if I'm going to take a guess, it's going to be the issue of oil thefts. I think which entity was it now? Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC or so. Yesterday they announced a panel that was going to start looking into upstream companies and their activities and oil theft. So if anything is related to that fall, maybe that's it. Tony Elumelu of Heirs Holdings, Austin Avuru, former MD, founding MD of Seplat, everybody's complaining about oil theft. So maybe that's what that's tied to, but we'll see. FX, Afolabi, also 2 days ago, the president commissioned the new international wing of Murtala Mohammed Airport. Hadi Sirika, Minister of Aviation, gave a speech, very open, direct speech, where he talked about the lack of FX availability for that can be repatriated out of the country. I think he said $280 million is still trapped here. Called on the CBN to help out with FX and so on and so forth. Called on NNPC to help import A1 jet fuel. FX issue that's aviation. On your side with your client, particularly for foreign investors, any chatter still around there?
Yeah, I think this has been one of the major topics, at least over the past couple of years, from foreign investors, and it's one of the major factors that has had an impact on their activities. Outside of good valuations and relatively cheap prices in the market, availability of FX and the ability to go in and out is something that foreign investors consider when they are looking to invest in any country, to be honest. So it's something I think, like you mentioned, has cut across different parts of the economy and has had an effect on practically everything. So it's something that's still sort of like on the hot corner as a topic for my clients.
Afolabi, you mentioned the, I guess, bearish sentiments of investors so far this year. Have any of them brought up the fact that it's a pre-election year? There's also that. Is that a possible, trigger? Has that brought up any chatter with your clients so far?
Yeah, definitely. There's always a concern from clients when we're in a pre-election year. I mean, pre-election years are typically seen as sort of like high-risk years, and clients usually tend to trade more cautiously over fears of insecurity and basically how the elections will go. So clients to basically weigh the risk versus the reward and just take a decision on whether or not it's the right time for them to invest. Some see it as sort of like a good entry point, sort of when everybody's sort of looking away and everybody is sort of cautious. Some will come in and take positions ahead of post the elections, and some will basically just stay away completely because they're like, okay, after the elections are done, I'll come back in instead of taking that risk.
Okay, cool. So we've elections, foreign exchange, war in Ukraine, all these things. Funny enough, we haven't mentioned COVID. We're still very much in a pandemic. It's been overshadowed by all these other things. Is COVID and COVID concerns, that's something clients still, especially I guess for aviation and so on and so forth, but that's something clients still bring up?
Yes, most definitely. But I mean, if I'm being honest, a lot of clients are also trying to move past it. The economy is sort of gradually opening up slowly. People are gradually sort of coming back to work, in bits. So everyone is sort of trying to move past COVID, but it's definitely still a factor that clients consider when coming to invest in the stock market.
All right, and I think you mentioned this earlier. The ratio of foreign to domestic, participation, what that's dropped, right? As far as foreign investors are concerned.
Yeah, it's dropped significantly. I mean, the NGX releases these statistics on a monthly basis. So we're coming from the period of maybe a couple of years ago where it used to be sort of like 60% foreign and then maybe 40% domestic. Now for January 2022, foreign participation was 12.77% versus domestic of 87.23%.
Wow.
For the month of February, foreign was 24.75%. So actually an increase versus domestic of 75.35%. So even though it was an increase, it's still a far cry from where we're coming from as a country.
Wow. And I guess you need foreign investors, right? You definitely need foreign investors.
Yeah, definitely do.
Clearly we do. Got a few messages here. This one from, this one from Ogene Uchuku. He says, I doubt if the war in Ukraine has any effect on the stock markets due to oil theft in the Niger Delta. He says, for the Dangote fertilizer plant, sharing news for investors, but will the farmers get cheaper fertilizer? I sincerely doubt that. Gbenga Akamo comes in to say, in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, is the Nigerian Stock Exchange subject to fluctuations due to developments in the political and economic spheres? For example, that Dangote fertilizer company. So I don't know if you want to respond to that, but Rotus, what do you say?
Yeah, NEPA struck, but we're still very much still here. Yeah, of course. I mean, I've already touched on that when we talked about the pre-election year and all these other matters. But if you have an increase in supply of fertilizer, that will impact. It should impact the price. So increasing, as far as the cost of imports, what it will save the country, there's going to be a big advantage that we're going to get from what the Dangote is bringing in terms of the refinery and fertilizers. Afolabi, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. We're not sort of immune to any of these factors. So just like you said, thank you.
All right. Well, that's our show, guys. But Rotus, do you want to closing statements?
Yeah, I just want to thank Afolabi Gbenro, equity sales trader at Stanbic IBTC, and to remind everyone, call me at stanbicibtc.com if you have any inquiries or you want to ask about Stanbic services. Afolabi, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Rotus. Thank you, Kayode. Thank you for
Good to
having me.
have you. Thank you so much, guys. All right, Lagos, you can keep in touch with Rotus and also continue the conversation. Like I mentioned, as always, he's at Roten Quotes on Twitter, and also tag Smooth FM into the conversation. We're at Smooth 91 FM across all platforms. That said, there's more to come in a few more minutes. It'll be time for Freshly Pressed 981.